Now to talk about the second property of music versus sound, and that is dynamics. Dynamics are defined as the degree of loudness or softness of a pitch or sound. Now, of course, there are many labels for these dynamics. Musicians and composers most often use Italian words to describe levels of dynamics. The ones that are important to us for this class and are the most widely used by musicians and composers are listed below: pianissimo, piano, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte, and fortissimo. These are all words describing various levels of soft and loud. As you can see from the slide, instead of spelling out the word in the actual musical scores, usually they're represented by a particular symbol. For example, piano, which means soft in Italian, and is what we use to describe that level of dynamic in music, is represented simply by a lowercase p. Mezzo forte, which means moderately loud, is represented by an MF. Dynamics are always written in lowercase letters. Now, dynamics are not only loud or soft. Sometimes dynamics refer to the change in volume from one moment of sound to the next. For example, if one of us were to let out a blood-curdling scream, obviously that would be a very loud sound. But at the end of it, as we ran out of air, the sound would die away and get softer and softer. Musicians need words to describe gradual changes in volume, because we can't simply say the music was loud or the music was soft. Sometimes the music becomes loud or gradually changes from soft to softer to the softest dynamic. So there are many words used to describe these changes in dynamic. The basic ones are decrescendo, diminuendo, and crescendo. Decrescendo and diminuendo basically mean the same thing, that is, getting softer over time. So, remember that scream? Basically, a scream is a decrescendo because it starts loud, and by the end, the sound volume has died away. Remember, decrescendo and diminuendo mean the same thing. Crescendo, on the other hand, means getting louder over time. So if you can imagine a siren coming from the distance, far away a siren sounds very quiet, but as an ambulance or police car nears you and passes you, that sound gets much, much louder until it climaxes at the loudest point. That's considered a crescendo. All of these things I can describe to you in relation to sound rather than music, but it's when we put them into music in an organized fashion over time that it becomes such an integral part of music and how it works. Certain pitches at different levels of highness or lowness, really, it makes such a difference in order to have them at a soft dynamic or a loud dynamic or somewhere in between or gradually changing. It's what gets our emotions involved in the music. Think about the Barber Adagio for strings that we listened to in the first week of class. In the climactic moments of the piece, the strings are playing extremely high-pitched sounds, and they're holding those notes at a fortissimo level, as loud as they can play. And the music slowly then dies away and becomes much softer. We all feel different emotions when those moments happen, but we feel emotion because it's interesting and because we've taken dynamics and created an organized pattern that makes music. So now it's time for listening example 2. This listening example is taken from the book. If you look on pages 7 and 8 from the book, it gives you a listening outline. It tells you when certain things are happening in the music and describes the history of the piece you'll be listening to. It's always good with these listening examples to look up the history of the pieces, find out why they were written and when. The Firebird is a ballet. You're going to be listening to a short segment from Scene 2, which is the finale of an orchestral version. That means that you'll be hearing an orchestra play the climactic moment of the ballet. Some questions for you to think about while you listen. What dynamic is used at the start of the piece? Is there a change in dynamics? Is there more than one change? What emotions are sparked by the dynamics used in the piece? Also, Think back to our lesson about pitch. What type of pitches are used? Can you hear any intervals, tones, or patterns that create scales? After you've thought about it and you've listened to the example 1 or 2 times, feel free to listen to the other parts of the ballet and compare and contrast using these concepts of pitch and dynamic, as well as the next concept we're going to be covering, tone color, to determine why it is that you like what you like about this music. I hope you enjoy listening. This is a fantastic example. Remember, you can find all these listening examples in the chapter folder where you found these videos. You simply have to click off the video and click play on the audio file.